Здравствуйте, друзья! Сегодня в нашей программе гость. Гость очень интересный. Джейми Глазов, редактор консервативного издания Front Page Magazine и человек, который написал очень интересную книгу. Как, на наш взгляд, книга очень важная, потому что книга называется «Обама. Наследие Обамы. Как он изменил Америку». И действительно, когда мы говорим о том, что происходит в нашей стране, мы должны постоянно оглядываться назад, откручивая время истории для того, чтобы понять, каким образом современная Америка пришла к той пропасти левизны, в которой мы сейчас все находимся. Добрый день, добрый вечер, Джейми. Добрый вечер, Игорь Туфельд, который всегда с нами. И пожалуй, мы начнем с того, что я немножко расскажу о Джейми Глазове. Джейми родился в Москве много лет тому назад. Много. В 9 лет его привезли в Америку. Родители диссиденты. И Джейми прекрасно понимает по-русски, но предпочитает говорить на родном английском. Итак, я буду задавать с Игорем Туфельдом вопросы по-русски, мы будем говорить по-русски, но для удобства нашего общения Джейми будет говорить на английском языке. Мы обязательно переведем это все, и поэтому неудобства в общении не будет. Джейми, первый вопрос. Почему вы решили с Обамы начать?
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a great pleasure and honor. Thank you. Well, as you introduced me so kindly and generously, Elena, I was born in the Soviet Union. My parents were dissidents. My dad and mom, very, very brave people who I love and I cherish and I honor them. And they took a stand against the Soviet regime in many ways. And they took a lot of risks, and they could have ended up in the Gulag. And a lot of our friends and family suffered tremendously under the Soviet regime. And my people suffered very much under the Soviet regime. And I think that many of the people watching know what the Soviet system did to the Russian people and to people all over the world. To make a long story short, just as an introduction, we came to America and to the West, and we escaped the Soviet Union. But the Soviet Union has now come to us. And we understand this virus very well. We understand this ideology. We understand the monstrosity that comes with this ideology, that comes with smiles and with promises of equality and freedom, but ends up with people languishing in the Gulag Archipelago. And there was one man by the name of Barack Obama who also gave speeches with great smiles and talked about hope and change, and that he didn't care whether it was red states or blue states. He cared about one America. But what he did and who he was is very interconnected with the ideology that brought so much pain to the Russian people and to the people of Eastern Europe, to the Ukrainian people and Latvian people and to the Cuban people and to the Chinese people and to the Vietnamese people. And the catastrophe that we see today unfolding in front of our eyes, that causes me so much heartache to see what Joe Biden is doing to this country. It's truly shattering to see such a precious, beautiful experiment in America, what America is, which is the most beautiful experiment in world history of freedom and individualism and of respect for the Judeo-Christian tradition. And I could go on and on. That's all being destroyed and damaged, as we well know, by this administration. But the idea for this, the fertilization for this, was rooted in Barack Obama. So I felt that it was very important to invite the experts of the world to contribute essays on many different subjects and themes to show what Obama's true legacy is. And it resulted in the book that's now out.
Джейми, у меня есть вопрос такой. На самом деле многие считают, что все началось не с Обамы, а с Клинтона, с Билла Клинтона, что он был как бы основателем этого. Собственно говоря, тут нет ничего удивительного, потому что мы знаем, что основателем социалистических идей был Карл Маркс, а воплотилось все это в жизнь гораздо позже. Что вы думаете по этому поводу?
Well, Igor, you're very correct. It's a very profound question. Look, I don't think anything just begins with one person and one time, because if we study the left very carefully, if we study the Soviet experiment, if we study everything that's happening, I mean, maybe we don't go back to Clinton. Maybe, excuse me, maybe we don't go back to Obama. Maybe we go back to Clinton, but we might go back to Jimmy Carter, or we might go back to Karl Marx, or we might go back to the Garden of Eden, that first lie that you can be God. And because that's really where this is all rooted, that leftist ideology. We could go back to Cain killing Abel, that first pretension of equality and the result from it. So Bill Clinton, absolutely, there was a lot there. Absolutely. A lot there in terms of trying to administer a lot of this leftist ideology, but he was pressured very much. And as we know, because of the House of Representatives and the Senate and, you know, and what he had to try to do, he became very conservative economically because of the pressure from Newt Gingrich and others. But yes, but your question is very important, because we could even go back farther. Who pulled the rug from under the feet of the Shah? Why did the Khomeini revolution succeed in Iran? Well, we can very much look at Jimmy Carter, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua, all those terrible events in 1979. Jimmy Carter had a lot to do with that. He facilitated those horrible things. He allowed them to happen in many respects. And it was precisely because, again, of leftist ideology. So Barack, of course, didn't come out of thin air, but he very successfully, very brilliantly, very shrewdly brought in this hateful ideology camouflaged with smiles that in many respects formed the foundation for what Biden is doing. And our book shows that in terms of how he weakened America in terms of foreign policy, how he unleashed the Muslim Brotherhood, how he betrayed Israel, how he facilitated and enabled the persecution of Christians throughout the world. I mean, I could go on, but everything we're seeing today with Biden, very much rooted in Obama, but of course, there were many seeds before Obama.
Мы сейчас говорим об Обаме, но ведь начиналось, вы правильно говорите, задолго до Обамы. Начиналось все с разрушения образования, с индокринации вот этих, внедрения вот этих социалистических идей, которые пришли сюда не в 40-х, гораздо раньше. 30-е годы, франкфуртская школа, которая переместилась, которая, в общем-то, завоевала сознание. И 60 лет тому назад произошел необратимый процесс. Потому что вот такие особы, как Ноам Чомский или же Ал-Салинский, они стали кумирами молодежи. Они стали теми людьми, которые формировали внимание и формировали мировоззрение молодежи. Вместе с тем у нас в Америке была Энн Рейн. И Atlas Shrugs, Китан расправил плечи, была та книга, которую сейчас уже не читают. Что произошло и в какой момент высшая школа стала левой? Кто виноват в том, что произошло с американскими детьми?
Such a profound question and vital question, Elena. And of course, at the root of this, because the left always goes at the children and evil goes at the children. And it begins with the children. And, you know, the left is very interested and evil is very interested in child sacrifice and brainwashing children. And absolutely, I know so many conservatives who pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for their children to be brainwashed by Marxism, and they don't do anything about it. This is where, I'm at Front Page Magazine with David Horowitz. He's a former leftist that left the left, and he really fights, but that's one of his main battlegrounds, is the campuses and the public schools, because he knows that that's what, the Soviet, you could say the Soviets, that's one word to describe them, the Bolsheviks, that's what they target. And you're absolutely right. When we look back, you look at the figure of Bella Dodd, for instance, and what she revealed in terms of how all the spying was working and how the spies were working, the KGB, their infiltration of America that started a long time ago. They've been doing this for decades. And absolutely, they're infiltrating. They're not just infiltrating government, but they understood very well. You see, the communists, they understand, the left understands very well what Gramsci was preaching. He was stressing, forget the political world, grab the culture. Because when you grab the culture, that's where all the power is. And so, absolutely, this is happening in our political sphere. Every movie today, when we turn on every movie has this LGBTQ agenda now, and it has the attack on the family, the attack on males, the attack, and of course the attack on women, but in a very more sophisticated way to make women think that they're being praised and enabled and strengthened, when actually it's the opposite that's happening. But absolutely, I was in academia back in my day. I hope I'm not too old right now, but back in my day, it was already suffocating. But today, you say that you like Donald Trump or capitalism, or take a stand for Judeo-Christian values on an American campus today, you might be in a lot of trouble. What might happen to you is just what happened to the teachers during the Cultural Revolution in China, what we know happened to dissidents in the Stalinist era, even the Brezhnev era and Andropov's era. And so it's a combination. The Soviets are very clever. They've been infiltrating our society for a very, very long time, and they've targeted, of course, the education system. And the tragedy is that we have the left that's enabling it. But the problem with many conservatives, as David Horowitz has shown, they don't understand political war. Conservatives, they believe the right things, but a very large number of them are having barbecues and living their life. And of course, I'm not putting down barbecues. I'm using an example that they live their life. They're not in battle. And the left is in battle 24/7. And this is the problem that conservatives, and of course, many have been waking up, and we've got a lot of great fighters on the front lines, but there's a lot of sleeping and a lot of blindness to the leftist threat and how they operate.
Джами, вы упомянули такую вещь, как предательство государства Израиль со стороны Обамы. Сейчас, на мой взгляд, это продолжается и усугубляется в еще более крупных масштабах. Я имею в виду договор с Ираном и заигрывание перед исламским государством. Поэтому мне бы хотелось спросить вас еще о двух книгах: «United in Hate» и «Jihadist Psychopath». Там вы пишете о том, что многие радикальные фундаменталисты внедрились в Госдепартамент, другие государственные структуры, и те, кто критикуют их или, по крайней мере, пытаются доказать, что их идеология полностью противоречит идеологии Америки, подвергаются определенным репрессиям, увольнениям, критике и так далее. Расскажите, пожалуйста, об этом.
It's very rare that people are asking me the core questions of my life and of my study, and I really appreciate that. Well, we come from the Soviet Union, and I'm a little kid, and my dad and mom, what a beautiful atmosphere they raised me in at our dinner table. So many discussions, not just Dostoevsky and Pushkin, but worried about Alexander Ginsburg and about Vladimir Bukovsky and about Andrei Sakharov, and worried about the people in the Gulag, and worried about freedom. And this was very much on my mind as a child. And I grew up thinking about the people suffering, about what happened to my two granddads, about what happened to our family. There's a lot to say. And we're in America now, and I thought, oh, we're in a free country now, and we're in paradise now. And then all of a sudden, there's these people like professors, and I had to ask, who are these people? And it was explained to me that they're leftists. They were telling my dad to shut up. They were telling him he's a fascist and he's a racist, and where he came from is a beautiful place, and where we're living now is just an awful place now. And we need to have more of where you came from and where you escaped from. And Castro was such a good person. And, you know, Mao made a few mistakes, but he's really good. And I was fascinated by these people. And I hated them. As a Christian, you know I'm told, or we're told, that it's not good to hate, but I'm also a fallen human being. And I can't describe to you how much I hate these people whose hands are drenched in the blood of the victims of the left and of the Soviet experiment. So I became very interested in why they believe these things. Why do these professors that work with my dad at the university, why do they hate him so much? And of course, I'm not talking about everyone. My dad was very loved by a lot of people, but I'm referring to some of the leftists who wanted to flirt and dance with the KGB and with the Soviet monstrosity. And I asked my dad all the time growing up, why, you know, this professor, if he went down to Cuba, you know, he has pictures of Che Guevara and Castro all over his walls. But if he goes down to Cuba, he says one wrong thing, he'll be killed within 30 seconds. Why? What is this? And my dad once put this book, I was 12, 13 years old. He put this book on the dining room table by Paul Hollander. It's called Political Pilgrims. And that changed my life. And Paul Hollander, sociologist, God bless his soul, he's passed now, but had a very fundamental impact on my life. And he explained the psychology of the fellow travelers, the people in the West who traveled to Stalinist Russia, Mao's China, Hanoi, Sandinista Nicaragua, and they went and they found paradise there, while the greatest monstrous barbarism was being perpetrated against the people. And Paul Hollander explained the psychology of these people. He explained the psychology of the political pilgrims, of the fellow travelers who rejected their own free society, where they were very comfortable and the luckiest people in the world, and why they longed for and wanted to worship and bow down in front of the Stalins and the Castros. This psychology is something that I began studying my entire youth. And when 9/11 occurred, and I saw the feminists marching in the anti-war demonstrations alongside Islamists, screaming, Allahu Akbar. And it was quite a sight to see these leftists, especially these feminists, praising jihad and on the side of, you know, Islamic gender apartheid. And it was mind-boggling. There's some kind of a death wish happening there, something suicidal happening there, something very strange. And I sat down to write a book. And my book, United in Hate, it explains the left's flirtation with Islamic jihad. And there was one, and it continues. And I gave the background because it's a continuum. There was the fellow travelers and political pilgrims with the communist world. Then after 9/11, it really escalated, but the left changed its veneration. The left had a new God now. It was Islamic jihad, It's actually very frightening. And I documented that. And I really need to update my book, Elena and Igor. I have to update it because now we're at the third phase, the mask. Okay, yeah, there was the communism and there was jihad, but now I can get the boosters and I can put the mask on. We don't have to put on the unisex Maoist clothing anymore that erases sameness. That erases individuality and imposes sameness. We don't need to worship the burqa anymore, which erases individuality and imposes sameness. We can all put on the mask now, which erases individuality and imposes sameness. And of course, camouflages God's image in our faces, because let us make man in our own image. And in whose interest is it to stop us from seeing the image of God in one another? Could just be something evil. And so this is what I'm interested in, and show the history of, is the hatred in the heart of the leftist that rejects his own society when he lives in a free society and wants to bring the totalitarian, not just wants to worship the totalitarian far away, but to bring it here.
Вы сказали о тоталитаризме, я почему-то вспомнила о прессе, о наших средствах массовой информации, в которых 92% служат именно тем, кто заказывает музыку, разделяй и властвуй. Вот это разделение исходит от прессы, которая из четвертой власти, она уже подменила все остальные ветви власти. Без нее ничего не происходит. Когда мне говорят Пулитцеровская премия, я всегда вспоминаю Уолтера Дюранта, благодаря которому Америка так и не узнала, что такое Голодомор. Но сейчас не изучают Оруэлла, а сейчас изучают труды, вот эти книги, которые написал Обама. Сейчас появились новые авторы, которые будут писать под заказ, и новое поколение будет узнавать о мире, его искривленном уже виде. Потому что идет преломление сознания. Но когда 92% средств массовой информации лжет или говорит полуправду, мы в результате получаем искалеченное поколение людей, которые не способны воспринимать правду вообще. Вот то, что сейчас происходит. Консервативная пресса – это жалкие проценты, которые существуют. Кто нас слышит? Нас слышат люди, которые хотят услышать, которые пытаются найти правду. Но мы в меньшинстве. Каким образом мы, консервативные журналисты, неважно, говорим по-английски, по-русски, на разных языках, но пытаемся сопротивляться вот той системе, которая сложилась. Каким образом мы можем сделать так, чтобы нас услышали? Хотя бы не жалкие проценты людей, которые нас слушают, а гораздо большая аудитория. Как нужно работать с аудиторией и как заинтересовать, в конце концов, спонсоров?
Well, this is the key, isn't it? What can we do? I just, which is the crucial question. I just want to go back for a minute because you mentioned so many vital things that's connected to this discussion. So Walter Durante, who represents so many things, and one particular thing, just on one realm, hiding Stalinist monstrosity, hiding the purges, hiding the truth about the show trials, hiding the truth about forced collectivization and the starvation. He hid all of that. You mentioned Noam Chomsky earlier, hiding, trying to suppress what the refugees from Pol Pot in Cambodia were saying. Today, the left always trying to minimize, during Islamic Jihad, trying to minimize what is jihadists are doing, what Islamic Sharia is about. Today, trying to, of course, extend it now to, it's all connected, suppressing the truth about what these deadly vaccines are doing to people. It's all connected. But the key there, it's very important to stress this in the heart of the left. You have to deny what happened in the Gulag. You have to deny what Islamic gender apartheid is, what Islamic jihad is, and what it's rooted in. You have to deny that. Because if you accept the truth, that means that our system is superior. America is superior to other cultures and systems, and it's worth defending and protecting. And in the heart of the left, they want to destroy America. They want to destroy the foundational principles of freedom. So they have to always deny what our evil adversaries are doing. And so, look, they're very successful in how they've suffocated us and continue to do so. And it's getting worse and worse. We've always been marginalized. We've always been, you know, when I was going to university, I can tell many stories, but I refused to be quiet. And I remember even walking into certain environments during the graduate lounge and other places, and everybody would be talking. And all of a sudden, the evil Reaganite capitalist would walk in and everybody would grow silent. And, you know, I was treated very badly on many realms, but that's okay. I didn't need to be popular among those people. And I didn't need them to be my friends. I created many of my own social worlds. But I'm just saying there's a totalitarianism on campus. There's a totalitarianism in our society now. And it's just getting worse and worse. And it's all over social media. I mean, I am banned almost everywhere and shadow banned. And, you know, Musk opened up Twitter for now. That's at least a good thing. But, and I don't mean to just talk about myself, many greater people than me, great people who are banned and can't speak. And this is getting worse and worse. We can't hardly say anything anymore because it's all misinformation. And what the Biden administration is doing now is, if you're even a parent that doesn't like a drag queen dancing in front of your little child in school, the FBI might just be taking your license plate down in the parking lot because you're a domestic terrorist now. So the opponents of the left are now becoming domestic terrorists. We're entering a very scary time. The Democrats are really succeeding in this. We see them going after Trump. We see what they're, you know, that's just one example. The intelligence agencies, this whole leftist apparatus is going after free speech and free thought in America. It's a real Bolshevik coup and revolution here. Elena, in terms of what we can do, look, that's quite a long conversation, but I think it becomes with something very simple and basic, is what you wonderful people are doing. And we continue to speak. We do not get intimidated. We refuse to be silent. Use the channels that we know. Channels, people should be watching you. Keep speaking. And if we're not allowed on Facebook or Instagram, we start a show over here. YouTube censors us over here. What happened to us? We go over to Rumble. Keep speaking. Keep allying ourselves with other people who also believe in freedom. Support the freedom fighters on the front lines, the people who are really doing the difficult work. We have to support them and enable them. And again, we cannot be afraid. And we, you know, because the silences we know can be very deadly. So just the beginning of the conversation on that level is to be courageous, not to be intimidated in speaking the truth, and to speak it in public through the vehicles and channels that we have that are like you wonderful people, and to support the people who are doing wonderful things. Because look, we're in a situation now, and I've been in these rooms, and a person says, is somebody here going to say that somebody that doesn't have a penis is not a man? Or somebody, can a woman have a penis, or whatever? I'm so confused by all that now. But I have been in rooms where people are so afraid and intimidated now that they're afraid to say that a woman has a vagina and a male has a penis. They're scared to say this because of the trouble they'll get in. And this is how totalitarianism works.
Джейми, я Хотел бы спросить, задать такой вопрос. Я тоже имел некое отношение к диссидентскому движению в Советском Союзе, больше к еврейскому отказничеству. Общался и с Щеранским, и с Володей Слепаком, и с Виктором Польским. И в этой ситуации многие говорили: ну что вы, чем вы занимаетесь, это пустая трата времени, вы все равно ничего не добьетесь, вас посадят и так далее. Но тем не менее все эти люди вкупе с другими диссидентами, вы вспомнили Гинзбурга, вы говорили об Орлове, ваши родители и многие другие, в конечном итоге смогли расшатать этот преступный советский режим и добились определенных результатов. Сейчас все идет вспять, но, по крайней мере, советская власть просуществовала 70 лет. Что нас ждет в Америке, основываясь на том, что мы видим сегодня в современной Америке, и то, о чем, собственно, мы говорили все это время?
Well, thank you for what you do and what you have been doing. And Sharansky, what a great figure. I just want to talk about something that for a minute, because it's very much connected to your guys' questions, but to what also was always in my heart is Sharansky was held in a lot of these cells at the Lubyanka, I think, but he was held in this basement. And when he had become a minister in Israel, they went to visit the Soviet Union. And he said, and he wanted to go visit the place where he was imprisoned. He was with his wife. And they brought him there. And he said, no. I know where I was held. Take me to the cellar. And he showed them where it was. It was in the cellar. And they brought him down there, and he found his cell. And he came into his cell, and he said to his, it's always on my mind, this one scene that he described. He said to his wife, this is where I was for so long by myself, or, in so many words. And she said, it looks very familiar, this cell, because I was with you here every second. And I just want to stress that in this discussion, we never forget the triumph of the human spirit and of love and of caring, because a lot of times, my friends, as you well know, it's not necessarily the military battle. It's not even necessarily a political battle, while those are important, but it's what's in our hearts. It's our faith in God, and it's what we are told in Hebrews, to always remember the people in prison as though we are in prison with them. So I just wanted to say that in terms of Sharansky that you raised, because this triumph of the human spirit in our heart and to love one another is something that we really need to focus on, because no jail in Castro's Cuba, no jail in Putin's Soviet Union is what I would call it right now. They can't take away what's in Navalny's heart. They can't crush it. But now to speed up my answer, and I'm sorry if I'm long-winded sometimes or often, is yes, it's getting very, very bad. And you're asking also, where is all of this going? Well, we can feel and see the Soviet Bolshevik revolution. It's actually transpiring in America and throughout the world, but just in a different way. And this is so overwhelming, because when we watch the crumbling of the Soviet Union, quote unquote, we thought the Soviet Union fell. It's very debatable if it fell, and you understand my argument. We know that it fell in some ways, but were there Nuremberg-style trials? Where were the trials, and where was the trial of the ideology of that system? It didn't happen, and that explains why what's happening today. But now there's a technocratic Bolshevik revolution too. So the Bolsheviks have not necessarily come up with pistols and with gunfire, but they've come with a totalitarianism technocratically. And as we know, the global digital idea is on its way. We know there's a lot that the globalists are up to today, and it's a Chinese style social credit system. And very soon, don't be naive. And I don't mean that towards you. I just mean it to people in general. The day is coming where you're going to come to the store and they'll say, excuse me, credit card is not working. You have to change your political views. Let me see. Oh, you said something good about Donald Trump on this date. So, you know, that's coming. That's coming. And so there's something very evil on the horizon. The left and the globalists together are succeeding, and it's happening at a very, very rapid pace. So quickly, in fact, that we have a former president of the United States being charged and indicted and arrested on all this foolishness, while Hunter Biden, and in terms of everything he did, gets a slap on the wrist. So we see very much the red terror coming in America, but just in a different form.
Вы говорите вещи, о которых, в общем-то, мы в наших программах постоянно говорим. Потому что не понимать то, что происходит в этой стране, могут только люди или слепые, или глухие, или, мягко говоря, не совсем умные. Мы приехали давно в эту страну, и мы приехали каждый за своей американской мечтой, которая превращается в ничто. Вот в ту кредитную карточку, которую заберут. Речь идет о том, что я наблюдаю каждый день. Я наблюдаю за деградацией, может быть, это кому-то не понравится, за деградацией именно республиканской партии и республиканских идей. Республиканцы уходят в изоляционизм. Потому что я поддерживаю лозунг Make America Great Again. Да, нам необходимо восстановить Америку. Но при этом надо понимать, что Америка не находится в вакууме. Она находится в мире, где существуют другие силы. И закрыться в своем доме, в своей крепости не удастся, потому что крепость сейчас тоже беззащитна. Как объяснить людям консервативных взглядов, что то, что происходит в мире глобальном, оно касается Америки? Когда я слышу от моих дорогих республиканцев, что война в Украине – это не моя война, вопрос возникает, а вы понимаете взаимосвязи? Если вы считаете, что это не ваша война, но там воюет ваш враг, Иран, там воюет Россия, которая с Китаем тоже вместе, там воюет совершенно новая ось антиамериканская. И в результате из долларовой зоны уходят страны. Их уже много. Это означает крушение американского доллара, крушение американской системы, крушение Америки как таковой. Вот как объяснить людям консервативных взглядов, что изоляционизм, может быть, был хорош в XIX веке, но в 21-м это трагедия.
Thank you, Elena. Well, you're touching on something very, very crucial, because there is so much willful blindness. And we can discuss, again, the methods that we need to employ to try to open up the eyes of those who are willfully blind. But they are. They are. And I just want to talk about how they are for a minute, just to understand the psychology of this blindness. Because there's always this belief, oh, well, that's happening over there. Oh, yeah, Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong. Oh, yeah, that was over there. And, and there's this disbelief or a difficulty in believing that this can not only happen here, but it's already happening here. And but the brainwashing is so powerful. I have people that till this day are telling me, Jamie, you're really paranoid and you believe in a lot of conspiracy theories. And they're saying this to me. They have 10 masks on their face and they're standing on this dot at Walmart and they don't move off the dot because they've been told to stand there. And they have 18 boosters in their arms and they're sick because of these shots. But Jamie's a conspiracy theorist. So it's incredible how suicidal denial can be, because it's already here. But I just want to touch on something where I've distanced myself even from a lot of conservatives on some levels because they just can't hear. There's this thing, where do I begin? But I want to touch on it. We live in a grief denying culture. And I think, I'll just say this, being also from Russian culture, there's, a lot of Russians complain about Americans. Oh, they ask you, how are you? But they don't want to listen. Well, there's something beautiful about that, because how are you in America it's a nice greeting, but there's a respect for privacy. There's a respect for space. They don't want to listen to the babushka talking about her wart for 3 hours. So that's the good side of of American privacy and stuff. But there's also, on many levels, a denial of what could be wrong. And so when people say, how are you? And of course, I don't mean all, but in general, in the culture, a lot of people in America, they don't want to hear bad or to hear a problem. And if there is, oh, this person's getting me down and you have to be optimistic, there's this grain in the West and in American culture. And it has its positive aspects, absolutely. But it also has negative aspects, because especially here in LA, I've noticed that everybody has to be wonderful. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. I mean, don't say you're bad. But a lot of these people who reprimand me, if I'll ever say I'm a little bit sad or worried about something, when they reprimand me, these are usually the people who have had 50 plastic surgeries and are on Xanax and Zoloft and all these other medications. I'm not going off course here. There's sometimes a method to my madness. I hope you know where I'm going with this. Is that when somebody like me or you, and we say America is doomed if we keep going this way, we are losing, America is collapsing, the fix is in, a lot of people will say, Jamie, stop being, so you need to be more optimistic. You're a pessimist. Don't be such a, believing in all these bad things. Everything is okay. They reprimand me and tell me that I have to have faith. And it's the opposite. I get very frustrated with these people. Don't teach me about faith. You're the one that doesn't have faith. I have faith because I don't get depressed. I'm not saying I never get depressed. What I mean, I just mean in general, when we see what's happening in terms of the awful situation, we don't get depressed. We can still love life. We can still celebrate life. We still live. The people who are trying to suffocate us and close our mouths and say, be optimistic, don't be pessimistic, those are the people who have an emotional incapacity. They can't face what's actually happening, because they'll get too depressed and they can't even go on with their day. This is a crucial problem in most people. They can't face the bad news because of their own emotional weakness. And they don't have the faith that we have. And I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying that, of course, it hurts my heart to see what's happening. But I celebrate every day at the same time, because us Christians and also the Jewish people, we share something, that the darker things get, we also need to be celebrating and dancing in the streets, because it means that our Savior and our Messiah is closer than ever, even though we believe in a different Messiah. In one form anyway. Some people would argue, of course, it's the same thing, just in a different way. But you understand what I'm saying here. So there's a lot of people who psychologically cannot face the truth. What's going to wake them up? Unfortunately, sometimes it's very, very bad things. It's a jihadist attack, or finally there's martial law. A lot of people were woken up by this whole hoax that just happened with the lockdowns. But unfortunately, many dark, bad, horrible things have to happen for people to wake up and understand the threat of the left. But our form of educating is very important. And it's tragic, because I remember when I was teaching at the university for a while back in the day, and even when I speak to a lot of young people today, they've never heard of Stalin, they've never heard of Lenin, and they don't know basic things. They don't know that the very idea of a classless society, the very idea of equality, mandates terrorism. And I'm not saying equality in the eyes of God. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying a forced equality mandates Stalinism. And these are basic things that my parents taught me. And these are basic things that this younger generation has no concept of. They have no idea why there was Stalin and Mao and Castro. They have not been taught this, and deliberately so, because the people heading the education system believe in these principles and don't want people to know what the consequences are of leftist ideology.
Игорь, это уже последний вопрос, и будем закругляться по времени.
Довольно такой обширный, я бы сказал, потому что исторически сложилось так, что республиканцы всегда отличались своим изоляционизмом. И, по сути дела, во времена президента Рейгана, например, и так же, как и президента Трампа, успехи во внешней политике были неоспоримы. Кроме всего прочего, они действительно достигли результатов, которые не могли достигнуть ни одни предшественники их. Например, если говорить о Рональде Рейгане, то помимо Гранады он сумел одержать победу в холодной войне, что, в общем-то, полностью поменяло соотношение сил, мировой баланс и расположение, политическое расположение во всем мире. Президент Трамп добился того, что не могли добиться его предшественники в отношении Израиля и договора с арабскими государствами. Он сделал правильную вещь и исключил палестинский вопрос из мирных переговоров. И только тогда стало ясно, что только таким образом можно добиться договора с арабскими странами. И в этой ситуации, как вы оцениваете будущее республиканской партии и будущее президента Трампа на выборах 2024 года?
And do you mean in regards to Israel?
In regards to America, in regards to the whole world.
What are the positive aspects if Trump wins again?
If he has a chance to win, and if it will change the policy of the Republicans, what just Lena mentioned.
Well, it's a great question. And just in terms of what you had raised earlier, what tremendous good things he did for Israel. And he really needs to be praised for that, because Obama enabled the enemies of Israel, betrayed Israel. Money was pouring into the hands of the Ayatollahs, who we know are killing Israelis and Americans. Money was being poured into the hands of the Palestinian terrorists. And Trump stopped all that. And he really needs to be praised for that and all his other policies towards Israel. I just wanted to get that in there. Big problem with the Republicans. A lot of them, it's very, very, very depressing what's happened to the Republican Party, aside from some of the heroes like Jim Jordan and some of the others, but they're a small handful. So the Republicans, many of them are also part of this whole deep state globalist agenda, and it's very sad, and it's why many of them are never Trumpers. And Trump is not part of that establishment, which makes him so great. So I don't know, but if he won again, that would put a lot of pressure on the never Trumpers. It would put a lot of pressure on these Republicans who are cowards and have surrendered. But we need Trump, we need very much, if America is going to persevere, Trump was about America first. And that's why the globalists hate him so much. They're creating this one world government. And when we used to talk like this 2 decades ago, a decade ago, we were called conspiracy theorists. If you look closely today at what's happening with Soros and Klaus Schwab and Yuval Harari and Bill Gates, and there's no mystery anymore. They're even announcing this from the rooftops. Trump was in their way. they hate him so much, precisely because of what a good man he is and how much he wants to keep America out of this globalist, in my opinion, Luciferian system. So America is now drowning in a cesspool because the left is in total control. Biden is following the orders of the people around him, which are the globalists and the leftists. It's not a surprise. There's no mystery here. What kind of president keeps a border open and millions of illegals coming in, and not only leaving the border open, but taking these illegals and putting them on flights and buses and putting them to all parts of the country? It doesn't take a mathematician to add up what is happening here and what the agenda is here. This is all, a lot of people say, oh, Biden is an idiot, Kamala is an idiot. No, they're not. Yeah, they might be idiots on a few levels. They're very clever. This is all by design. So if Trump won, I think the Lord would give us a brief reprieve, because he would definitely stop a lot of this leftist destruction and hopefully put America back on a more positive course. And there's a lot of hope and evidence that he is capable of doing that, because he's a very brilliant man who knows how to get things done. And we saw that in his 4 years in office. He did a brilliant job in many ways.
Thank you.
Спасибо большое за ваше участие, Джейми. Я считаю, что нам просто не хватает вот такого обмена, потому что, как правило, люди, которые жили в Советском Союзе, они могут больше рассказать Америке о том направлении, куда они идут. Люди, которые покинули Кубу, могут сказать то же самое. Люди, которые уехали из Китая и приехали сюда, из того Китая, и помнят времена культурной революции, они могут много рассказать. Люди из Венесуэлы могут много рассказать. Но нам нужна трибуна, к сожалению, эта трибуна очень маленькая. И я напомню те слова, которые сказал нынешний президент, 46-й, о нас с вами. Он назвал нас полуфашистами. Я хочу закончить наш сегодняшний разговор рекламой вашей книги. Майк Хакаби ее назвал «Свирепое и леденящее чтение». Мы не пришли вас развлекать, мы пришли вам говорить правду. Правда не всегда бывает веселой. И поэтому нам не всегда хочется улыбаться. Нам иногда хочется плакать, но мы улыбаемся. Потому что мы не хотим, чтобы они, те, кто называет нас полуфашистами, радовались. Точно так же, как мы не хотим, чтобы когда-либо над Америкой прозвучало вновь «Tomorrow belongs to me». Знаменитое окончание, знаменитый хор из фильма «Кабаре» 1972 года. И я очень часто слышу сегодня вот это «Tomorrow belongs to me». No way. Мы не отдадим ни своих детей, ни свою Америку, ни свою американскую мечту. Спасибо, Джейми, вам за то, что вы говорите правду. Я напомню, Джейми занимает должность редактора Front Page Mag. Это магазин, это консервативное издание американское. И покупайте, пожалуйста, книгу, которая есть на Амазоне, Джейми Глазов. Книга об Обаме. Называется она только по-английски пока вышла. Я думаю, что по-русски ее тоже надо будет перевести. Obama's True Legacy. How to Transform America. Так вот, как изменить Америку и как ее сделать социалистической, это все исходит и от Обамы, и от Клинтона, и от всех тех, кто поставил себе задачей изменить мир. Спасибо большое.
Elena, I would like to hire you to speak about my book if that's possible.
I'm ready.
Well, because you say it all very wisely and beautifully. And just to finish quickly, what a problem, because I noticed that it's the immigrants from totalitarian environments. It's us that are fighting to save America. And so many Americans aren't doing anything. And I have these discussions with the producer of my show, Annie Cyrus, for instance, who escaped Iran. She's fighting. I'm from the Soviet Union fighting. We're fighting. We need Americans to join us to fight for their own country. But thank you for having me on. И я прошу прощения, я по-русски не говорил, только я немножко лучше по-английски. И, может быть, последние слова меня всегда учили сказать, что на нашей улице тоже будет праздник.
Совершенно верно, Джами. И к тому, что сказала Лена, я бы хотел добавить еще, что без двух остальных книг, которых я упомянул уже, United in Hate и Jihadist Psychopath, оценка того, что сделал Обама, his legacy, будет неполной. И эти книги, я думаю, они также важны для американцев, для англоязычных, и надеюсь, что они все появятся на русском языке. Тогда это будет полная картина того, что мы видим сейчас, и то, что было в период правления президента Обамы. Большое спасибо за участие в нашем эфире, и надеемся, что мы с вами еще не один раз встретимся. Всего хорошего.
I would like to thank my Uncle Marek, who made this possible and introduced me to you. And большое спасибо, и вы прекрасные, очень хорошие люди. Спасибо.
Спасибо всем. Я повторяю, вы на канале «Континент». «Континент», говорящий правду, «Континент» планеты людей. Так что подписывайтесь, ставьте вашу реакцию, комментарии. Ну, а мы обещаем приглашать Джейми Глазова в наши передачи. Всего доброго.
Всего хорошего.
Большое спасибо.